Okay, so this is now the state number 6, starting off with New Jersey, then New York, Maine, Illinois, New Mexico, and now Ohio. Ohio River is right to the east of me. Here I'm in Steubenville, Ohio, which is really close to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, actually. It's only about 25 minutes away. It's where I flew into this morning. And you go through West Virginia on your way to Ohio. So it's a really interesting kind of nexus point. And here I am in the dwelling, that is to say in the studio, and in the background you can hear my good friend and colleague Sam Maroka's guitar. Hopefully it's not drowning out my voice as I record the meditation that was written this date, May the 7th, 2004. And I'm here in the studio of Aardvark Studios in Steubenville, where I've come to sort of document and witness the recording of the album Late to Love, and I'll be writing the libretto for that. So more to be said about that. I've already uploaded 2 videos on that, but for the moment I'm going to read the meditation, and still missing that page, so picking up from reading directly from Being and Learning. What does it mean to dwell poetically, and why is this held out as the comportment of learning? Responding to this question places us before the question Heidegger raises when he asks, quote, "Then how can human dwelling be understood as based on the poetic?" This way of posing the issue enables us to identify the poetic as the basic character of human dwelling. Heidegger borrows this from the poet Hölderlin, who wrote, "Poetically man dwells," and says, quote, Heidegger, "When Hölderlin speaks of dwelling, he has before his eyes the basic character of human existence. He sees the poetic, moreover, by way of its relation to this dwelling, and thus understood essentially," unquote. We immediately identify the manner of our understanding to be ontological. The answer to the how can human dwelling be understood as poetic is ontologically. The poetic is the basic character of human existence, is the originary claim of this work. It has been embedded in the exploration we have been making of the relation between learning and being, which we initially identified as unfolding through teaching, identified at the onset as the poetic performance. This performance, we said, communicates teachability by delivering the message of possibility, the not yet. The means of delivering this message we have called evocative speaking. To repeat what we said in the opening moments of this work, when we respond or heed this message, we have become teachable. What we have discovered is that to become teachable is to become part of the joint creative effort, and this effort is organized by one who does not implant but rather cultivates what is always already at the core of human existence: natality, initiative, creativity, freedom, the poetic. We have called the one who cultivates the most essential character of human existence the sage. And here we can now take up even more fully what is meant when we say the lover of learning is the animated teacher, the mythopoetic speaker, and the intensely attentive listener. Further, why teaching, which enlists the turning towards being, attentiveness, attunement, is named poetic. Here we arrive at a crucial moment in our attempt to delve into the meaning of this name and try to understand precisely why mythopoetic speaker is the proper name of the communicative performance that enlists learning. If we embrace the poet's claim that the basic character of human existence is poetic, then we are compelled to gather the meaning of the poetic and thereby grasp the kind of mythopoesis that captures the poetic dwelling of the sage. We have said that the work of the sage is one of cultivation. The 2 primary denotations of cultivation capture the 2-sided quality of the poetic as both a causing dwelling to dwell and what really lets us dwell. In the first sense, cultivation is a kind of preparation, a making ready, through sowing and tilling. To till is both to prepare and direct, and this takes us to the second meaning of cultivation as refining or completing. But what is refined here is further denoted as an attitude or a manner. specifically as the basis of relating to others. The example used is the cultivation of friendship. So we see that the basic character of the human dwelling as cultivation maintains the two-sidedness of the two-pole play of truth. It is both a sheltering and preserving, but also a formation and a bearing, a particular kind of standing out. And directing and pointing. The two-sidedness of cultivation, sowing, tilling, and reaping, harvesting, identify the twofold quality of poetic dwelling. Quote, poetic creation which lets us dwell is a kind of building, unquote, from Heidegger. The sage's dwelling, as depicted in the Heraclitus story, depicts this dual quality. His dwelling unfolds within the shelter of the hearth, in close proximity of the fire, and within this location he allows learning to happen, which amounts to the meeting of the immortal and the mortal. But his dwelling is also an act of creation, issued through his incantation, his invocation, his evocative invitation. The sage's dwelling is thus a cultivation of learning, insofar as in his waiting he preserves the space, and in his greeting mediates the appearance of freedom, or releases his visitors into the modality of learning. The poetic as poesis is a making as both a creative act of making something and a preservational act of making available. This is the double demand of poetic dwelling. This double demand, however, is properly expressed in the double sense of building as both a place or abode and as making or constructing. But when we identify the dual meaning of building, this only sheds light on the dual sense of dwelling, which can also mean place, to be, and a making of a place. Thus, to fully grasp the claim that poetic dwelling is the basic character of human existence, we must unpack the relation between dwelling and building, and explore how ontological character of human existence is offered in the, quote, the telling of language. And that's where it ends. And I have about 2 minutes left. So, I mean, it's really hard for me to read this with this, musical production going on. It's not hard for me. It's wonderful, and what an opportunity, and how timely to be reading this writing 10 years later. And at the time, of course, one can't envision where one's going to end up, but to be reading about the experience, the sort of essential core of the relationship between learning being one of poesis, and of learning as a dwelling, and a dwelling as both a building, as a making, as well as a way of being. So being in a place and building this place. And to have this happen, to be reading this in this studio with my very good friend and close collaborator, Sam Rocha, his guitar happening in the background, and the making of this music that's inspired by no one less than St. Augustine, who is the one who inspires Arendt and her concept of natality. And it's natality and initiative that's at the core of what we're talking about here, what I'm talking about here. So here's this album that's happening right in the room, in this studio, and right in next to me, and you can hear the music that's being produced. Now they've just stepped out of the studio and they're listening to the take that they just made. And this is what this is all about. It's about music making in the literal and the figurative sense, in the sense in which this all captures what I've been talking about in terms of doing something, taking the initiative and doing something with one's freedom. So this is as close as one gets, I think, to an example of what I've been sort of musing about. And so on this date, the 7th of May, 10 years after the original writing of this meditation, I'm here in the studios in Steubenville, Ohio, that are called Aardvark Studios.